Välkomna till Wednesday Breakfast. Vilket väder. Vilken dag. Och igår kväll, vilken kväll. Det är bra, det behöver vi de här 3 dagarna som det är sommar. Och sen blir det ju 10 grader på midsommar kanske. Men hörni, ämnet för idag. Jag heter Mats Gustafsson och jag är från Wednesday Relations. Så jag ska bara introducera det här lite. Jag tänkte också avsluta lite på slutet. B2B marketing and sales, det är mitt favoritämne så att säga. Och det händer ju otroligt mycket där just nu. Och det är ju liksom utmaning för många. För att tidigare har jag i alla fall sett att marknadsföring är lite B och sälj är väldigt A på B2B-företag. Generellt. Men nu vänder ju det där, för nu liksom blir ju marknadsföringen väldigt viktig. Och det här med inbound marketing, och man måste synas, folk är ute och söker och man måste ha content så de kommer in och liksom vill registrera sig och ge bort sin e-postadress och annat. Och därför blir ju, och säljarna kommer allt senare in i köpprocessen hos kunden. Så att det är ju kritiskt med marknaden idag. Och det är inte alla som har förstått det. Ännu sämre tycker jag det är på professionella tjänsteföretagen som inte har någon marknad och säljavdelning kanske. Utan det är konsulterna som ska göra jobbet liksom också, för de är fullt upptagna. Det är den ena biten som vi ska prata om idag. Den andra som vi ska kombinera i det här, det är ju som jag tycker är fantastiskt spännande. Jag jobbade på Silicon Valley-baserade företag i slutet på 80-talet, början på 90-talet. Och då var det ju jättehett med Silicon Valley. Och det var Apple och det var stora bolag och man var liksom jättespännande att vara där. Det var otroligt häftigt. Och det är fortfarande ännu hetare nu. Det är jättekonstigt. Det står långt fram i tiden. Och det är liksom ännu värre på något sätt. Och jag är imponerad över att ett sånt rikt land som USA lyckas få upp så mycket nya bolag hela tiden. Det får inte Europa. Vi har ju ett problem i Europa. Vi behöver bli mycket bättre på det här. Och vad de tycker jag är helt fantastiska på i Silicon Valley, det är liksom att skapa ett bolag och extremt snabbt komma ut i världen. Jag fattar liksom inte, de måste ju ha några modeller där och lära sig varandra och dela erfarenheter och sen kopiera den här modellen och kommer ut liksom. Det finns ju oftast något bolag i Sverige som gör precis samma sak som något gör som kommer hit från USA, men de tar ändå över allting. Sen vet ju vi att vi älskar USA och amerikanskt och sådär, men det är fascinerande. Och när vi ska nu få träffa kollegorna här från Sköna och få höra precis liksom de här 2 delarna, så tycker jag det är en fantastiskt spännande dag idag. Och jag ska inte säga mycket mer än så, utan rubriken är ju Building B2B Marketing Excellence, the Silicon Valley Way. Och det bör vi väl kunna ta en del efter, tycker jag. I lilla Sverige, top of Europe. Ska vi ge en stor applåd till Jenny Sagström? Ja. Jenny, are you agreeing with me?
I do. I agree with you 100%. And I'm going to switch to English, even though I am Swedish, but we are an American company. We have a French lady who has not yet mastered the Swedish language, so we stick to English internally. But as Mats mentioned, I'm Jenny Sagström. I am the CEO and the founder of Skåne Advertising, or Sköna, as we're practicing to say now. We've been Skåne. We were started 14 years ago in San Francisco, and about 2 months ago, we opened our office here in Stockholm. So we are a B2B marketing-focused agency. And so we're really excited to be here today to share with you our insight and our knowledge about how we do things where we come from. So today, Martina is going to kick things off. She's going to tell us about how to build a B2B brand and why it matters. Then Gwen is going to take over. She's going to talk to you guys about inbound marketing and how to build an inbound marketing machine. And then they're going to hand it back to me, and I'm going to tell you the trends that I'm seeing currently in the Silicon Valley and really tell you what the CMOs in Silicon Valley are talking about right now. So, do you have your mic on? Is it working? All right, Martina, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Martina, and I am the planning and account manager here at Skåne here in Stockholm. And like Jenny said, I'll be talking about B2B branding today. I was like, I need to switch my presentation to my presentation, actually. It's a good idea to start with. Yes, building a strong B2B brand. Yeah, so just out of curiosity, how many here feel that you have a strong B2B or a strong brand today? Okay, I don't know if that's depressing. Okay, well, hopefully I can give you some tips. We'll see. Let's just start to talk about why a strong brand is important. So obviously there are a few reasons. First of all, it gets you through the door. So this is about awareness. You want to be the brand that everybody remembers, obviously. Secondly, it decreases buyer risk. Buyers, especially in B2B, they want to make the right choice. They want to make the safe choice. And a brand can actually be that security for them. Thirdly, it helps your customers differentiate, obviously, between you and your competition. What else? It allows you to pivot. So this is something we talk a lot about in San Francisco. So sometimes you need to change your product, you need to change your service. But that's when having a strong brand is good and important, because you still have your relationship with your customers, you can pivot and still have your brand in place. Furthermore, obviously it helps you unify your team around something, a common goal. And hopefully, and lastly, it allows you to keep your prices high and have those margins, high. Okay, so let's talk about what a strong brand is not, or at least according to HubSpot. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's a marketing automation system. Yeah. So they're saying your brand is not your product, your logo, your website, or your name. So first of all, let's stop there. I would actually say that it's all of these things. Your logo, your tagline, font, all of that is very important because it's an expression of your brand. But it's obviously not only that. So in fact, your brand is much more than that. It's the stuff that feels intangible. But it's that hard to pin down feeling that separates powerhouses from mediocre brands. And I would like to talk about that hard to pin down feeling today. And I will boil it down, just to make it easier, to 3 things. First of all, holistic and consistent approach. Secondly, emotional connection. And thirdly, differentiation. So that's the 3 things I will be talking about today. So let's start with the holistic perspective. To make an analogy, I found a quote that I really liked. Maybe you've heard it before, but it goes like this. Brands are like icebergs. A logo is but the tip of this iceberg, whereas the heart of the idea lies submerged underwater. So the way I see it, basically, your brand is not only your logo. It's everything that's beneath the water as well. And think of all the touch points that you have, that your brand has with your clients every day. What are they called? Salesforce, sorry. So according to Salesforce, it takes 7 to 8 touch points to get a qualified lead. And it takes 62 to close a lead. So each of these touch points that you're seeing here, that's actually a branding opportunity for you, right? And it's important that each of these make a consistent whole in the eyes of the consumer. So you need to be consistent and holistic in everything you're saying. And that means, in other words, that everything from your website, your emails, trade show booths, to the pens that you give away, should actually communicate the same feeling that you want your brand to communicate. So just to give you an example here, brands like Google or Viking Line or Löfbergs Lila, for example. So they've been so consistent over the years that nowadays, even the smallest cues send your thoughts right away to that brand, right? And it's not only about the logo. Coca-Cola, for example, has its happiness. Everything is about happiness. Löfbergs Lila, they have the purple color. They've even taken away their logo from their marketing. So I think it shows that consistency doesn't have to mean boring. It actually is a door opener. You can actually do more with your brand if you're consistent. You can be really creative. So what does this all boil down to? Well, keep those touch points in mind. It's important to uphold consistency throughout. So you can't direct where your customers nowadays touch upon your brand, because so much of the research is done by themselves. But what you can control is that your brand is consistent no matter where they come in from. Secondly, consistency, it ultimately contributes to brand recognition, which fuels loyalty to your brand. And then lastly, if you don't already have a brand blueprint in place, I would recommend to have one, because it helps you to make that communication consistent throughout. So moving on to emotional branding. Let's do a quick test. Who's here for Coke? I was going to say, yeah. Okay, people are. Okay, Pepsi? Not that many. Okay. I think that was an easy one. Let's make a harder one. Okay, who's for Duracell? Jenny's like, yes, me. Okay, Energizer? Okay, yeah. So if I would go around and ask you, why did you choose Duracell over Energizer? I mean, seriously, it's a battery. Who cares? It's the same thing, almost. Okay, some of you might say that, yeah, okay, there are actually some differences, and you should keep that in mind. But, and it may be so. But what I'm trying to say here is that we tend to rationalize our emotional decisions. We make decisions based on emotion, and then afterwards we try to explain why we did it. And of course, okay, a battery purchase might seem trivial compared to, for example, buying a marketing automation system. But it's the same type of, what do you say, system that works behind it. So it's the same choice between, for example, Apsys and MailChimp. It's still the brand personality and the awareness of the brand that is key in that choice. I mean, it can still be what decides whether you actually even consider one of those two brands, if they're even in the ballpark, right? So emotional branding, when we talk about emotional branding, we like to talk about what we call the human factor. And this is all about appealing to the emotions of people. And this is one of the pieces that builds up that hard to pin down feeling that HubSpot was talking about. And B2C brands have this covered, mostly. But B2B brands tend to be, they tend to not use that as much. And our mission is to change that. And we're here to tell you and remind you that even, cloud-based data warehouses are bought by human beings. They are driven by emotions, and they are not always rational. And when I say emotional, I'm not talking about nostalgia, for example. When it comes to B2B, that's part of the branding exercise. It's about finding what you want your brand to, what feelings you want your brand to evoke, and hitting on them all the time. And this could be intelligence, for example. Do you want your clients to feel smarter when they are using your product? It's about considering what can you give your clients? How can you help them? Can you make them feel less stressed? Can you make them feel smarter than their peers? If you can find those triggers, use them in your communication. Make it feel personal to the end client. So the takeaway, yes, keep the human factor in mind. B2B clients, they also want to be wowed. They also want to have that aha moment from time to time. And people relate to brand personality. That's important to keep in mind. Secondly, make emotion part of your brand. Find what feeling you want to evoke with your customers and use that. And then finally, those triggers, once you've found them, use them all the time in your communication, And that can be anything. It can be your messaging, it can be your look and feel, it can be that, you know, video in your next brand campaign. But it doesn't always have to be the big things. It's also about the small things. Okay, moving on to brand differentiation. So 90% of all marketing or advertising today doesn't even get noticed. Isn't that depressing? A little, I think. So, I mean, with the amount of marketing produced today, I'm not surprised this is the situation. And yeah, okay, those campaigns might not get you fired because people don't see them, but they won't get you promoted either, right? So our job as marketers is to make use of those 10%, make those count. So that might mean that you need to stick out your neck a little bit sometimes, and as we say in Swedish, våga a little bit from time to time. And going back to consistency, so although consistency is very important for the individual brand, it's also important to keep in mind that you're not too consistent with everybody else in your industry. So you can think of it as consistent differentiation. Be consistent in how you differentiate yourself, basically. And that's where you have the element of surprise to work with. Because sometimes, and I feel we do that a lot in Sweden, we fall into the trap where we want to be not too different from our competitors because we feel that maybe the customer won't recognize us or understand where we fit in. And yeah, as marketers, I feel we always need to think about what is uniquely ownable for our own brand, and not only following the trends in the industry, because that's when you get phenomenals like the financial sector being all blue, for example. And yeah, I think this is a pretty funny example. Like, have you seen that Klarna are testing out new logos? So right now they're going for a pink one. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is the way to go, but they're trying to do something different. They're not blue anymore. So in sum, 90% of all communication is lost on us. Make those 10% count. Consistency only relates to your brand, not to being consistent with the whole industry. And then lastly, add an element of surprise there if you can. Wow them a little bit from time to time. Okay, so to sum my part up, I just wanted to show you 2 examples of companies that I think are doing, or that we think are doing a good job at this right now. They're not our clients, but we think they're doing some cool things right now. The first one is Cisco. I don't know if you've seen this campaign, but it's called Never Better. And it revolves around storytelling. So it's revolving around this landing page that they have, and what they're doing is they're using digital interaction to tell stories about how different companies and industries across the world are using their technology. So each story begins with this, there has never been a better time, and it ends with, for example, there's never been a better time to save rhinos, or there's never been a better time to make roads smarter, etc. And all of those messages really, strike on the human in us all. And then they are using content to really, grab attention and to make customers want to dig deeper into the issues. And the second case I want to show you is Atlas Copco. So having the human factor in mind can also be about, understanding that the customers can't give you all the time in the world, and calibrating your marketing to that. So Atlas Copco last year, they did a campaign where they were marketing a really advanced piece of machinery. And I'm going to show you what they did. Let's see if... Uh-oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, Welcome to the world's first trick shot setup to take place at a venue like this. We are about to witness the classic butterfly trick shot. This particular trick shot has been around since the early days of the great Ralph Greenleaf. And as we drift back, we see the white ball. This is the one that's going to make the butterfly react. This is truly a high precision maneuver. That's the shot. And what a shot indeed. This is truly groundbreaking. 137 feet.
Yeah, so pretty cool, I think. I think this video shows that sometimes a video like this can say more than 1,000 words on a fact sheet. Thank you. I will hand over to Gwen. So.
On? Thank you, sorry. Okay, so start over. I'm Gwen, I'm the general manager for Skåne here in Stockholm. I recently moved here from our San Francisco office. And I'm going to talk to you about inbound marketing. Okay, so first of all, what is inbound marketing? What do we mean by that? So it's the process of attracting your prospects to you instead of pushing your brand and your product to them. So it's really the process of making them come to you and wanting to communicate with you, engage with you. So why do we call it a machine? It's because it takes engineering and fuel. And I'm going to tell you a little story to explain what I mean. Okay. So here's Lisa. She's my friend, and she's a CMO of a B2B tech company, like probably some of you today. So our role, like yours, is to create a strong brand, like Martina explained, but also to drive results, to drive growth for organization. And the way growth is measured today is mostly through qualified leads. So the pressure is on for Lisa, and she has to really deliver those leads to her sales team. So, but I'm not really looking at her today because she's a CMO in a software company. I'm looking at her because she's also a prospect, a potential lead for a lot of different companies, probably like yours. So what do we know about Lisa? Well, she's in charge. She's in charge of her own choice. She can search for information online. She has access to a lot of information. She knows where to look. She is the one making the decision here. A few stats that we've come across. So according to Accenture, 94% of B2B buyers conduct online research at some point in the buying process. In a way, this is surprising, because to be honest, I don't think that 100% of buyers will look online first. I mean, who doesn't look online when trying to buy something? Anyway. Buyers might be anywhere from 2/3 to 90% through the buying journey before they contact the vendor. What does that mean? It means that Lisa will make the decision mostly on her own. She will look for information and have a mindset even before talking to a salesperson. Lisa will also ask her colleagues, her peers, her superiors, her friends for advice. Here's a little map that you've probably seen before. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but I guess it adds to the fact that it's a very crowded space out there. There's a lot of companies. This is called the marketing tech stack map. It's basically all of the software company that helps marketers get better at what they do. So imagine the solicitation that Lisa will get from all of these companies. Imagine all the information that she's going to see out there. And imagine as a company, the work that you have to do to stand out and compete with all of these people. Imagine the noise out there. So how do you really stand out? Well, we're going to look at a little example. We're going to take one of this company. And we know them pretty well because we've been working with them for a few years in San Francisco. So they are here in the middle in this yellow column. A little closer, they are under events, meetings, and webinars. So they're here somewhere. Well, I still can't really see them. Here they are. Second to the left, they called On24. And they are a webinar platform provider. So today, Lisa, our CMO, is a client for On24. So how did they really engage her? And how did they convert her from being a prospect, a lead, to a customer? Well, or more exactly, I guess I should say, how did Lisa found them? And how did she engage with them? Because it's not really them. It's more like, remember, she's like in charge. So she is the one that decided to engage. The goals really for On24 was to get found and engage, and give reason to Lisa to engage with them. So to understand really, the starting point really for On24 was to understand Lisa, understand who she is. Going back a little bit to the human factor, thinking of her as a human being, understanding her role as a CMO, her pain points, her expectation, what she's looking for, how they can help, what is her understanding and her knowledge about webinars as a marketing tool, and where she searched for information, how she searched. So this is really the starting point of their approach. And one thing that is really pretty important is trying to understand where she stands in the buyer funnel. So of course we know that this funnel is kind of, I guess, a map that we use to understand where in a purchasing decision Lisa might be. We know that in real life it's not as linear, right? Like we make information, we go back from one stage to another, but still it's a good map because we know that she will get through those stages at some point during her journey. So it goes from awareness, being aware of webinars, understanding that webinars are important to add webinar into a marketing mix, so that's kind of top of the funnel. Then she becomes interested. She will consider webinars, to add webinars as a tool. She will have the intention of buying a webinar provider. So this is more middle of the funnel. And then at the end of the funnel, or at the bottom of the funnel, she will start evaluating the different providers out there before making her choice and purchasing the solution. So what does that really mean for On24? Well, it means that they have to map their sales funnel to Lisa's. They have to understand where she is in order to provide her with reasons to engage at every stage of the funnel and push her down the funnel, so convert her from one stage to another. So how did they do this? Well, it starts with content, and we're back to inbound. Everything really starts with content. We know that B2B buyers review an average of 10.4 sources information in any buying situation. So that's a lot of content. And content is really the fuel to On24 lead generation strategy. What's key here, or the key to success, is generating the right content at the right place at the right time. And this allows to become On24 to really become more relevant when they communicate with Lisa. They will be helpful to her, and the goal is to create marketing that she will love, that she will find useful. So this is really what inbound marketing is about. So On24 team understood that. They understood the need to really prepare Lisa, to give her reason to engage and nurture her throughout the funnel to convert her from target, prospect, lead to customer. So they developed a lot of different content. And here are a few ideas of a few type of content that they built or they put together that plays a different role during the funnel. Of course, it's not as scientific as this. You could have a webinar that is top of the funnel and a white paper that is more bottom of the funnel, but it's kind of a general rule. So to kind of drive awareness and build thought leadership, they will do checklists, white papers to kind of engage and give her like more reasons to consider them as a solution. They will do ROI calculator, ebooks, webinars. When she's at the bottom of the funnel and ready to make a decision, they'll have product demo, video testimonial, case studies, buyer's guides. So there's a lot of different type of content that they actually produced. So let's go back to Lisa and have a little look again at her and her journey and how she went from target to prospect to customer. As every marketer, Lisa is always looking for new ways to create content. So she came across this good-looking infographic, the webinar content explosion. It catches her attention. And she clicked on it, downloaded it. It was not gated, which means that she didn't have to enter or fill out a form. She could just like access it like this. But she saw on the landing page a little CTA that was like, learn more. So she clicked on that CTA. It drove her to another landing page to download a white paper on the same subject. So she was interested, and this time she was ready to give our contacts away. So this is a little interesting insight on this for you. So we talk about the art of demand gen, or demand generation, versus the science of lead gen. So what is the difference here? Well, demand gen, you make people want your product or want the information. So the content is not gated. The goal is really to kind of create broad awareness and reach a maximum of people. Versus lead gen, the focus is really on capturing those people, building your database so that you can then nurture those people. So the content is gated. A marketing study suggests that a white paper or ebook will be downloaded at least 20 times more without a gate. So would you rather have 50 new leads, some qualified, some not, or would you rather have 1,000 people learn about your brand and your product? So this is just a little food for thought. I think the plan is really to do both. You need to mix gated and not gated. I know that we all want to kind of drive lead and collect those information, but you have to also think about the type of content that you're gating. Back to Lisa and her little journey. So she then saw a banner on LinkedIn, time to take your marketing to the max. Well, of course, that intrigued her, and she's like, yeah, I definitely want to take my marketing to the max. So she got intrigued, downloaded a couple more white paper, she read a few blog posts, she downloaded a benchmark report about webinar. Now she was in On24 database, right? So she received personalized email with interesting and relevant content for her. She received an invitation to an event, webinar word that On24 was putting together. She thought, she looked at the agenda, and there was like sessions, keynotes about the future of digital marketing, and also some more kind of tactical session about how to build the best possible webinar. So it's like, okay, this is really for me. She decided to go. So little by little, On24 was building the trust. They were being recognized as the brand and being more trust in the brand. Back at work, she decided that, okay, I understand now, I think I need webinars in my marketing mix. But let's see how much it costs and really like, how does it play out in my mix? So what is the ROI of webinars? So she Googled webinar ROI. She found again this page of On24, where is your ROI? And she decided, she watched the webinar on demand about the subject and decided to forward that link to her CFO. Because remember, she never make a decision by herself. She's actually spent quite a lot of time on the On24 website. So I think what's important here is that your website is really the hub for all of your content. The website acts as really the hub for all the resources at every stage of the funnel. So she keeps coming back to it, depending on what the question she has, or she saw that every kind of question or resources were there on the website. Meanwhile, still receiving a lot of emails from On24. The key with email is really to not be intruding. So the way you do it is really by providing good content, that you're not really shouting about your brand. No one's scared about receiving an email about your brand. Look how big or good I am. What's important is more like, oh, we understand that you have this problem. Here's the solution that we have for you. So more webinars. How did your webinar fail? The common mistake about webinars. So the content of what you're pushing, or the titles that you're pushing, are really important. And here she's into the consideration phase. So of course the subjects or the topics of the content is as important as the content itself, or the type of content itself. Back to work, watch a few video testimonial. Now she's in a phase where she knows she's gonna buy her solution. She wants to be reassured by her choice. She has in mind that she's gonna go with On24. She's like, okay, let's have a look at who else is using On24. Well, a few videos of customers of On24 saying how great they are. Always better when they were saying that themselves. Case studies that shows how they're really using webinars. Then she downloaded a couple of tip sheets to really compare the functionalities. Here we're getting into the details of the product. And this is really at the bottom of the funnel, that you're starting to be all about your product. How does it compare with others? What kind of technical things you will need to take into account? She forwarded this to our IT department. Make sure it's compatible with whatever system they're using. She did a 30-day trial. She's to sign up for 30-day trials. She made her first webinar with On24. Now she was ready to buy. So she contacted a sales rep and subscribed to On24. So today, she's a very happy On24 customer. She used Webinar Monthly as part of her marketing mix to generate leads for her company. And she even won this little quarterly competition that On24 is putting together. She won the webinar award for best use of video. And so all this to say, or to really show, On24 really created this inbound machine. And I think you understand why we call it a machine, to convince Lisa. So how did they do this? Really through content. I think this was pretty clear. So content is really the pulse of your lead gen campaigns. It is the way you stand out from the competition. It is the way you gain the trust of your prospect. Your marketing strategy will be as good as the content you produce. So a few tips really for you to take away, and how you can start, or how maybe you can improve what you've started to do. So first, customers first. So map your contents to the buyer's journey. Map your contents to your buyer and what are their needs, what stage of the funnel they are in. Have content for them through the whole process. Deliver for the chaotic, because of course we have this funnel, but we know real life is not happening like that. So mix format, mix demand gen, lead gen, nurture. Use all the available channels that you have and try to be where Lisa is. Stay consistent and create a seamless brand experience. Going back to what Martina explained about consistency, every little touch point that you will have with your prospects help to build your brand. Bring value to your audience, answer questions, solve problems, personalize your content. So the closer you'll be to as targeted you'll be, will be better received. Repurpose your content. So for example, an ebook, can be a one-pager, can be an infographic. Make your website as part of your strategy. Use events as part of the strategy to meet in person. And finally, combine inbound with outbound. Because so outbound pay technique, not as much to share or to promote your brand, but to promote your content. And that's it. That was my last tip for you. And of course, if you want to know anything about these, we can talk afterwards. And I'm going to hand the mic to Jenny.
Well, before I let you go, we're going to practice.
Oh,
We're going to practice
What did I
pronouncing the company name. that you work for. What company do you work for?
I work for Skåne. So yes, not a really good trick to do.
How do we say it in Swedish?
Rönna?
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting there. Thanks, Gwen. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit here. I saw some of you take some pictures of Gwen's notes here. I also want to let you know that there's actually a handout right over there that you can pick up on your way out that has all of those summarized on there, so you can take it home and check it out. So the last thing we're going to talk about today is what's happening in Silicon Valley right now. Uh-oh. Dramatic pause. So we, working in the Silicon Valley, I like to think that we're sort of at the emerging trends of what's coming. And so I'm going to really tell you a little bit of what I'm hearing every day. So first up, I'm sure you see it here in Sweden too, artificial intelligence. You can't open a magazine, you can't turn on the TV without seeing something about it. So what does it mean? Well, Ray Kurzweil, who actually works at Google, came up with something a few years ago called the law of accelerating returns. What he says is the progress of the entire 20th century would have happened in only 20 years at the rate of advancement in the year 2000. The 21st century will achieve 1,000 times the progress of the 20th century. To me, this is really hard to comprehend, but it basically means that every year things are getting faster and faster and faster. Things like chip speeds, which is why our phones are working so well today, and also the costs are going down. It's cheaper to do all these technological advancements now than it was a few years ago. So, because of all this happening, you know, these are important and huge things, and it makes us ask questions such as, how do we regulate this, and how do we ensure employment in the future when everything is going to be mass automized? So those are really important questions, but perhaps a little bit above what we do in the B2B marketing space. So we try to then think, okay, artificial intelligence, how does that relate to us? In the B2B space, we have 3 areas where this actually becomes relevant every day in technology that we're currently buying. The first one is machine learning techniques. And this is basically where we take large data sets and we can analyze them much faster than has ever been possible before. So that allows us to get a better holistic view of who our customers are and what's important to them. The second thing is applied propensity models. So we get all the data here, and then we take it and we run it through models, and we can better predict who's going to convert in terms of leads and buying, et cetera. The last thing is with regards to AI applications. This is what we think of as normally human things, like writing personalized emails, writing content for websites. This is actually being done by machines today. So these are 3 areas where we're actually seeing AI in action today. So it's kind of interesting and it's exciting. Another trend we're seeing is the marketing tech stack. So last week I went around and I visited some of our customers, some of the clients we work with. This is David Downing. He's the CMO of SnapLogic, but previously he became famous, so to speak, at NetSuite. I asked him a very non-leading question about what his focus for this year was going to be, and he said, making sense of the blizzard of marketing technology to build the marketing tech stack that will be most effective for your B2B marketing needs. This goes a little bit to what Gwen was talking about earlier, but one of the reasons that this is so hot right now is because it's got a ton of money in it. So basically, back in 2012, Gartner, I'm sure you've all heard of it, it's an analyst firm, they made a prediction in 2012 that by the end of 2017, CMOs would be spending more money on technologies than CIOs and CTOs. It's a lot of money. Today, CMOs in general spend 28%. their budget overall is bigger than the CIOs. And at 28% spend, by the end of this year, this prediction is coming true. CMOs are outspending CIOs. So firstly, the reason why this is so hot is just there's so much money in the field. What do you do with that money? Where do you put it? So I think you remembered Gwen showing you that ginormous graph of all the tech vendors. There's almost 4,000 of them. So figuring out which ones to go with is becoming a full-time job. And here's the recommendation we have for you. We think you should appoint a marketing technologist to your marketing departments. This doesn't mean you have to go out and hire somebody new, but you need to rewrite the job descriptions for the more modern marketing department so that you have somebody responsible for assessing, evaluating, and making sure you're picking the right technology on an ongoing basis. So once that's done, we assume almost everybody in here has a CMS in place. WordPress, Squarespace, something like that. You wouldn't have a company if you didn't have a CMS, probably. We think that you probably have started with CRM. With that, we mean Salesforce. There's a couple of other options, but that's really the big one. We think you've probably been up here, too, in the email bucket. That's things like Campaign Monitor or MailChimp. There's plenty of vendors. After that, we say, time to go to marketing automation. What we see mostly in the Silicon Valley is Marketo, but there is HubSpot for smaller and medium-sized companies, or Acton, or Pardo, plenty of options. If all that is taking place and it's all covered, then you can start thinking about personalizing the content of your website. And you do that with something like Optimizely and Demandbase. There's plenty of buckets and plenty of options. So I'm not going to go into all of these because I know we're a little short on time today. But if you have any specific questions or need a recommendation, don't hesitate to ask. This is Joe Hyland. He's the CMO of, I've already turned it up. I think I got it. I'm a little technically impaired, embarrassingly enough. I asked him, too, what he's doing this year. So let's see if I can make it play. Uh-oh, Martina.
The hottest thing in B2B marketing in the Valley right now is targeted marketing. So a lot of people are going to talk about account-based marketing, which is super important, but marketers have to have a targeted approach for how they disseminate their message.
So, what Joe said, it's all about account-based marketing. Gwen talked to us about the funnel. She showed us a traditional inbound funnel, which is on this side. You have attract, you have nurture, and you have identify at the bottom. What account-based marketing does is it flips it over. So you start by identifying your customers that have the highest propensity to convert for you. You engage with them on an ongoing and meaningful basis, and eventually you convert. I'm going to let you take the picture before I move on. So this is what pretty much everybody's doing in the Valley right now. And budgets are shifting to it. I took out the slide, but 73% of SiriusDecision, I'm sure you've heard of SiriusDecision too, 73% of their customers are increasing their budgets for ABM this year. It's a huge amount. Anyway, if you can't wait to get started with ABM, here are 3 things you can do today. Firstly, you need to discover and define your high-value accounts. Seems pretty straightforward, but you can't do it on your own. You need to go back and you need to sit with your sales department. We see a lot of ABM efforts fail because of misalignment between sales and marketing. You have to be on the same page for this to work. This is a company-wide initiative, and it is going to fail if you don't have alignment. Secondly, you need to define the content, and you need to personalize your message. With ABM, you're in a one-on-one conversation, and just sending your audience a corporate generic product sheet or something generic isn't going to cut it. You need to consider what their business challenges are, what their problems are, where they're at, and you need to customize your content to answer those questions in order to engage with them in a meaningful way. Lastly, measure, learn, and optimize. So this is where the marketing tech stack comes in. We talked about it previously. We now have the tools to do this. A lot of people give up on efforts like this first time around because they're not getting the incredible results they were hoping for. But the amazing thing about this is we can actually just tweak a couple of levers, give it another round, and things are changing. So don't give up if you don't get the results you're looking for right away. So that's what's happening in ABM. And we've done a couple of samples of this. I know there's a lot of On24 today. I promise we work with other clients as well, but this is a good sample. So in the middle right here, look at this, because this is the whole website. So you have a top header, which is actually that one. Supporting that, we have some additional materials. You have marketing, you have training, you have communications, you have some white papers, you have data sheets, you have all the type of information that people are looking for. Over here, you have digital retargeting banners that are only going out to people within the IBM IP network. So if you work at IBM, you'll be seeing these. What On24 was doing here is they were pursuing a land grab strategy. They had a couple of people using On24 at IBM, but they wanted to expand on that. So we created this campaign for them. And now I want you to remember this thing in the middle, because we also took the same website and we customized it for GE, for Oracle, for HP, and a bunch of other companies. So by doing that, we were able to get a lot more leverage out of one piece of creative. It went a lot further, and their budgets, could do a lot more. So that's what's going on in ABM. Next up, brand gen. So this is, we call her in Silicon Valley, we call her Denise Persson, but you would know her as Denise Persson. She is Swedish, and she's the CMO of a company called Snowflake. They're a really hot commodity in the Valley right now. They're raising a lot of money and getting a lot of attention. I asked her what her plan for 2017 was, and she said, the one thing I'm doing is investing in really good content. So that takes us to brand gen. This is a little term that we've actually invented at Skåne. Kind of proud of it. Basically, Gwen mentioned that the one thing that drives marketing departments is leads. If you get enough leads, as a CMO, you can keep the CEO and the board of directors off your back. When they're off your back, you can focus on more fun, interesting, and rewarding things, such as building brands. But what we have in the Silicon Valley is we have outdoor boards that cost $60,000, 600,000 crowns approximately, for 1 month. So getting the budget approved for a board like that is pretty hard when you can't show ROI. So what we came up with is, how about we merge a little bit of lead gen with the brand campaign so that we can show a little bit of ROI, which will help make the budget approval a lot smoother. So within the brand campaigns, we have added things like gated content. We've added things like CTAs that you normally wouldn't see in a brand campaign. And all of a sudden, the CMOs are more willing to find the budget to do these types of things. So here's an example of a campaign that we actually developed together with Denise. Here is the digital hub. There's a video that lives at the top. Underneath that, there's a quiz you can take to assess how your data warehouse is currently stacking up. There's supporting materials. There's outtakes from the video. There is data sheets. We did an ebook specifically for this campaign. Lots of materials that support this one campaign. And of course, the $60,000 outdoor board. 3 of them, actually. In Silicon Valley, you can't build a brand without an outdoor board. It seems foreign in this country, but it's just the way it is. So let's look at the video that's the cornerstone of this whole campaign. I need to turn this down, right, Martina? I'm gonna go down a little bit. I don't wanna make anybody deaf. Let's see if I can do this.
Really? Flour in the air vent?
Actually, it was baking powder, because I couldn't
Please. No.
He taped an air horn to the bottom of my office chair.
It's because he put mustard in my coffee when I wasn't looking.
He got 3/4 of the way done and didn't even notice.
Why?
Well,
the way it
settled at the bottom, and
No, why did you do that to his coffee?
Because he never actually responds to my IT requests.
I'm tired of staying here over weekends.
How am I supposed to get anything done when I'm always having to wait for my reports to process?
Oh, I'm sorry for working overtime so that you can get your job done.
Well, are you sorry for covering every square inch of my office with photos of my grandma?
You created a fake Craigslist ad with a luxury sedan for $200 with my name and phone number.
Nothing's for sale.
I'm getting like 50 calls a day.
I didn't actually do that one, but I gotta say, that is amazing.
You know, it'd be amazing is if you just waited in line like everyone else.
Oh, well, you know what? I get used to waiting because someone's always switching the keys around on my keyboard.
Well, that made a difference. This guy still hunts and pecks. He's typing like this. I'm not kidding you.
No, I don't. You know why I really can't get my reports done? Because someone's always connecting a wireless mouse to my computer and shutting Windows repeatedly right when I'm almost done finishing my reports that are overdue because nothing works around here.
This guy covered my car in saran wrap and then filled it with styrofoam peanuts while I was inside.
Hey! Well, you squirted my crotch with a water gun while I was on the way into a very important presentation.
You put Skittles in my M&M jar.
You didn't.
Yeah, I actually felt kind of bad about that one. But he did put my lunch in the freezer.
You think that was the prank, huh? It was actually to distract you so I could set up another prank that's gonna happen later.
Guys, this ends now.
Way to go, you got us fired.
I got us fired.
No one is getting fired. It ends now because we're switching to Snowflake.
Ta-da!
Snowflake?
Yep.
So that is what brand gen looks like to us. So I'm going to give you a choice now. We're running a little low on time. It's almost 9 o'clock. I can either tell you about neuromarketing and what we see about it, or we can call it quits and we can ask some questions. Hands up for neuromarketing. That means you're forsaking your questions. Okay, just checking. Is that okay? All right, just checking. So, neuromarketing. This is it's been going on for a while, and I was thinking mostly this was as it relates to consumer advertising, but I've been digging into it lately, and it's actually becoming really relevant for B2B because of how we think about the user. As Martina mentioned, at Skona, we are really passionate about changing B2B marketing so that we're considering the user, the buyer first, and their needs, as opposed to telling them what we think they should be hearing. So with the neuromarketing approach, if we commit to the fact that there is a human being buying what we're selling, whether that's Coca-Cola or a human resources system, looking into the neuromarketing becomes really important. So, I'm not a doctor, but this is a little complicated. So the core of neuromarketing is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. It sits right here. This little dot right in your brain is responsible for making the decisions whether or not something is worth the value it's being asked for. Is it worth $100? Is it worth $1,000? Right here is where you decide that. Well, only recently, did scientists realize that this same area also produces what's called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are little guys that do exactly what they say they do. They create mirror images, but within ourselves. And they're activated by being close to other people. So, turns out that this same area in your brain is responsible both for deciding whether or not something is worth the money that's being asked for it, and also for all the feelings that you're feeling. So things get mixed up in there all the time, and it's really hard to keep track of what goes where and what drives what. So even in B2B, consider our IT HR system buyer. If they're buying a new HR system, can we really say they're buying that because of the properties of the system? Or are they buying that because they believe it will make them smarter than their peers? The honest truth is it's probably a little bit of both. It's probably a combination. So that's what that guy does. The cool thing about this, really cool thing, is when you consider the psychology of our buyers, and we have a consumer example here, but when you consider the psychology of our buyers, one of the things that I most often hear is, love it, it's amazing, but can we make the logo bigger? What do I say to that? No, it makes it ugly. It's not going to win any arguments. So you're stuck in a corner of not having a scientific reason for why that logo should not be bigger. This is where neuromarketing has handed us a gift. After lots of research, scientists have realized that the area in your brain, the minute you see a logo, there's a defense mechanism, a warning mechanism that goes up in your brain that says, you're about to get marketed to. You're about to get marketed something you don't need, that you don't want. What happens then? Our shields and our defenses go up. That means the advertising is actually less effective. So we finally have a reason for why we shouldn't make logos bigger. Thank you, neuromarketing. And the cool thing about this is just the beginning. We're at the forefront of what's going on in neuromarketing as it relates to B2B. And this is going to continue to grow, and it's going to make everything we do so much better, because it's going to continue to force us to put the user, the buyer, first, and not our own needs. So that's why this is amazing, even for B2B. That takes us to 9:03. And let's go and make some B2B marketing magic. Thank you, everybody.